Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 22 of Inbound Now. I'm joined with a throw 'em up, 22. That's not a gang sign, or maybe it is, I don't know, we'll see. But I'm joined here with a very special guest, Mr. Jason Falls. Jason runs his own consulting agency, Social Media Explorer, and it's also a very popular social media blog. I actually looked it up today, and it's number 15 on the Ad Age 150 list. Right above HubSpot. We're 60. We're coming for you, man. We're coming for you. So,
awesome.
Just want to throw that there. And he's also a very well-known professional speaker in the social media space. I've seen a bunch of his presentations. I caught him live a year and a half ago in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina. I thought it was great. But yeah, welcome to the show, Jason.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, no problem, no problem. So I wanted to get you on the show to talk a little bit about how email and social media can play nicely together and how they can kind of leverage each other to make it even more effective. How you leverage your email newsletter, because I kind of like how you put that out there in different ways, and also diving into how companies can do effective PR pitches to bloggers and really scale that process. So sound good to you?
Yeah, that sounds great. Which one do you want me to tackle first?
All at once. No. Really, in a recent talk you gave at Initech Oregon 2011, you spoke about how social media and email are the wonder twins. And when they play together, they can really kind of play off of each other and do great things, right? So can you dive a little bit more into that and talk a little bit about how social media and email can play together in a good way?
Yeah, the Initech talk was really kind of fun. Jim Hitch from Emma, which is an email marketing provider, and I gave that talk together, and we kind of came up with that Wonder Twin Powers Activate thing, which is kind of cool. But email, what I think is a point that Jim really honed in on, and was a really important point of that talk, is a lot of people over the last couple of years, there's been tons of headlines on blogs and websites everywhere that email is dead and social media is killing email and nobody wants email anymore. But the simple fact of the matter is, number one, the vast majority of the free world is not, they're not social media geeks. They're not on Twitter and Facebook all day. And so email is still where most people live. Now that might be transitioning a little bit, but it's transitioning very, very slowly. And email is not dead by any stretch of the imagination. And one of the main reasons that email marketing is not dead, more specifically to the marketing side of things, is it is still one of the most effective ways to not only reach customers, but entice customers into action, get them to do something. And so the way that we approached, and the way that I like to attack email marketing and social media marketing together, is you've got to compel people with your social media content, which social media, number one, is almost 100% opt-in. If someone doesn't want to follow you on Twitter or Facebook, they don't have to, and there's nothing to click. They just don't go to your page. No problem. It's very easy, very low barrier to entry for someone to consume your content, read your messages. So what you have to do, the challenge becomes for your company, your brand, is to provide content that's compelling enough for them to say, I want to know more about this company, this person, this idea. And oh, look, they've got a big fat subscribe button. They've got content that they'll send me in my inbox that's bigger, more, greater than what they're giving me here. And so if you think about social media content as the foundation of what you're doing publicly, email content as the first layer of premium content that you can deliver to an audience, it helps you capture that email address, which pulls that nameless, faceless, or 48 by 48 avatar person from this public realm into your marketing funnel. You have permission now to talk to them in their inbox, and that's extremely powerful.
Right.
The flip side of that is that in that email marketing, you want to grow that list of people. And so don't just say, okay, we're done with the social media communications. Now we're just going to focus on email. Within that email marketing newsletter, whatever you do, whether it's a coupon or it's content or whatever you're sending out, make sure that the people who have raised their hand and love you have the opportunity to then turn around and share that content with their friends on the different social networks, because that just puts you in front of more people.
Right, right. So leveraging their social graph, when the people in your newsletter basically leveraging that. And I like what you said, not everyone out there is a social media geek just yet, right? And email is kind of the lowest common denominator that everyone has an email address, and basically getting into that, getting them into your in-house list. I think that's very, very powerful.
Yeah, it is, and I think what I like to try to tell people when they're thinking of their customer base or building community. That's a term that gets thrown out a lot. Is, let's say, unless you're a brand new product, a brand new business, you have customers, you have employees, you have family members of employees, so on and so forth. So you have a community already around your brand. You may not officially see the wall between you and the rest of the world. It may not be an official building or an official website that's a place for that. But you've got a community around your brand and your customers. My guess is that most people who have 1,000 customers just want 1,000 more just like them. That's why email and using social media through email is so powerful, because you're talking to people who see the content and go, man, I know 3 people who would love to know this. I'm going to forward that to them, or I'm going to share this on Facebook because I know more people will see it. That's where that power comes in. You're multiplying the audience that you have.
Right, right. And making it as easy as possible, right? Where it's like they don't have to kind of jump through hoops to share it. Making it right in the email, share it right directly through there.
Absolutely. I mean, the more sophisticated email marketing providers out there have gotten wise to that. And when you click on, share on Twitter, it doesn't just take you to Twitter. It takes you to Twitter, and the tweet box is populated with, I just read this e-newsletter from Jason Falls. Here's the link.
Right, right. Nice, nice. So talking about your emails newsletter, while prepping for the interview, I kind of saw you have 4 different lists that people can subscribe to, kind of like a preference center, if you will.
Yeah.
So how has that been working for you?
Well, it's new. Up until this past month, I had the monthly newsletter called The Navigator, and it's where I share kind of a big idea of here's what you need to be thinking about in terms of digital marketing this month. And sometimes I'm waxing poetic on a subject. Sometimes I'm sharing information that I learned from an interview somewhere. But I try to go a little bit deeper into a topic or two. I also have the opportunity to share discounts and things like that with people in the newsletter. So a few interesting things to share with folks. My learning community, Exploring Social Media, which is a subscription-based learning community, I do kind of a weekly, every 2 weeks kind of email with them that basically says, here's the new content that we've put in the community for you to consume. Here are the latest questions that people are asking of the digital marketing experts there. And so it's kind of a digest of what's going on in that community, but there's also some really good nuggets of information that you can look at and go, oh, wow, I need to go take that lesson, or I need to go look at the answers to that question because that question would help me too. And so that's a second newsletter. It's really intended for the members of Exploring Social Media who pay a monthly subscription fee of $25 a month to be in that community. But the email list is open to anybody because we figure, hey, if you get a reminder every week of the lessons that are in there, you'll be more willing to subscribe to the content if you know over time it's going to be good. So we let anybody subscribe to that if you want. The other 2 are new products that I have and am developing that I think are going to be useful to people. Number 1 is the Exploring Social Media Business Summits, which are traveling events that I do around the country, kind of one-day intensive strategy workshops. The first one that we did was just this past week in Toledo, Ohio. We had about 100 people there, and they're still singing the praises of it. They loved the content. Several great speakers, national speakers, all came to Toledo and spent a day just helping people understand social media strategy and content strategy. And so we're going to take that show on the road to a few more places. And so if you want to know when the events are coming to your town, who the speakers are, we've got a special list just so you can know about the events. That way, if you don't want the monthly newsletter, you don't want the community thing every week or every 2 weeks, but you really want to know more about the events, you can just subscribe to that too.
Right, right. And that's what I liked about, your subscription page. You lay out, what each one is about, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of companies, they'll just have subscribe to our newsletter, not say what we're going to send you, just like fill out an email, sign up, and it doesn't work, right?
Exactly. If you segment your lists for whatever reason, and you say, okay, well, we're going to send this group of people this type of email, and this group of people that type of email. Give your audience the opportunity to opt into or out of those things, because while it multiplies the workload a little bit for you, you have to come up with different content for different audiences. The more relevant the message, the more catered the message is to that audience, the more effective the email is going to be. The people who subscribe to the monthly newsletter but aren't interested in subscribing to ExploringSocialMedia.com don't care about ExploringSocialMedia.com news. So I needed to separate those two and make sure that I was talking to this audience with this message and this one with that message. And so the fourth product is market research reports, which we haven't started doing yet, but we're going to crank those out at some point. So you can subscribe to that too. If you go to socialmediaexplorer.com/newsletter, you'll see what David's talking about, those four options and what the descriptions of what they are.
I think, laying out exactly what's in each is definitely good to boost even subscription and giving them that choice. So cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And the critical thing there, and I sort of touched on it a minute ago, the critical thing is relevance. If you can deliver the right message to the right audience at the right time and to a certain degree in the right location, thinking retail and whatnot, those four things, if you can nail them, you're gonna sell a lot more successfully than you would if you're just sending out there to a broad list.
Nice. So, and I also saw you can subscribe via Facebook too. I think that's a new trend coming up with email services out there, where you can just connect directly through Facebook and that feeds in the email. So I'm interested to see where that kind of goes moving into the future.
Yeah, and I think that also allows people to control, because basically all it really does is it uses Facebook Connect to go say, here's your name, right, here's your email address. It populates the form with what you've already got on Facebook. Okay. So it's just 2 clicks. It's real simple.
Yeah.
Facebook Connect, yes, and you're done.
Right.
And so you don't have to type anything. So that's it's real simple.
The lazy people out there.
Yeah, it's for the lazy people. But I think it also, if you think about it that way, and you want to manage your email and whatnot through Facebook, every Facebook user now has a Facebook.com email address, and you can actually set that as default, and you can sort of manage your email subscriptions through Facebook. That way, you have a little bit more control over your inbox.
Okay, cool. So switching gears a little bit, you write often on your blog, and you're a PR guy by background, right? You've been in PR for a while now.
Yep.
And you write a lot on your blog about how companies should go about pitching, your blog and other blogs out there. So, how can companies start finding and reaching out to bloggers in a meaningful way, where it doesn't just turn them off and put them in the spam bucket?
Well, I mean, we go back to the exact same philosophy that we were just talking about with email marketing. You've got to pitch relevant stuff to relevant people at a relevant time. I blog about social media marketing, digital marketing, so on and so forth. I can't tell you how many emails I get a week, or probably a month is a better time frame, that are technology companies pitching some gadget, a new cell phone or a new GPS device or something of that nature. I don't write about gadgets. I'm happy if you want to send me a free one, I'll play with it, but I may not write about it because it's not what I write about on my blog. And so I have an audience that comes to my blog expecting to see certain types of content. You better pitch me content or ideas that fall into that window. Otherwise, it's irrelevant to me. And I think that's true for every blogger or journalist. And I consider bloggers and traditional media members in the same ilk. They write to an audience, and you want to reach them with your message. Right. You better make sure that what you're reaching out has something to do with what they write about in their audience. It needs to be highly relevant. Even if you do that, even if you completely nail the relevancy, the time, the right audience, the right person, et cetera, you also have to understand, too, that bloggers are not trained journalists. They're not conditioned to get inundated with PR pitches and press releases and so on and so forth. And even though you may pitch them perfectly, they may still say, I don't give a damn. I'm not writing about your crap on my blog. And so you just kind of have to be able to do a lot of homework on the front end, work the relationship. The R stands for relations, and I think that gets
really?
A lot of
Okay.
people.
Yeah.
And so focus on the relationship with that media member, that blogger, and you'll start to understand a little bit more about what you can do for them that's useful and what they will respond to that is ultimately beneficial to you or your client or your service.
Right. And then that's one of the things that you mentioned in the post, like, when you do reach out, that first initial touch point really shouldn't even be the pitch, right? It should be, introducing yourself, seeing if you can help them in any way, right?
Absolutely.
Then after you build that relationship, then it's kind of like, hey, we have this news, maybe you want to write about it, it fits your audience.
Yeah, and I've done that a couple of different ways, and that's one of the really powerful things for PR people about social media is if you can identify a media member that you want to ultimately, cultivate a relationship with, first of all, but secondarily down the road, you also want to pitch them on ideas. If you can find that they're on social media somehow, they have a Twitter account, they're on Facebook, or they're on LinkedIn, they have a blog, and maybe they communicate with people on those networks on a pretty informal basis, you can strike up a relationship with someone on Twitter literally in an instant. And a week later say, just, hey, how's it going? I've got something that one of my clients has that might be useful to you. Can I email you something? And then it's a very, sort of unobtrusive, passive, not at all spammy. If you're just saying, do you mind if I email you something? You've established some sort of rapport, even if it's just superficially. And that works for me in a lot of cases. I know I went to, once upon a time, back when I was working with a major spirits company, alcohol, wine, and spirits company, there were several established journalists in the space who also had blogs. So they were traditional journalists, so we could have easily reached out to them with press releases, and the PR firm that the company was working with did reach out to them with press releases and traditional stuff. But I found these guys on Twitter, and I went to their blogs and commented and back and forth, totally telling them who I was. I'm the social media guy for this company. And they really got to know me and like me because I was offering relevant insights and questions and perspective on their blog, and I was having conversations with them both on Twitter and then on a forum message board that was real popular in that industry. And after a year or so, I was able to pitch the traditional media members better than the PR firm because I knew them better.
Right.
And so it's just that process of building a relationship with folks over time, and it's always better if you start out with, hey, I'm not asking you for anything. I just did your work. I work for this company. It just makes sense for us to know each other.
Right.
And unless they are just completely brand marketing and PR averse, a reporter's going to go, "Oh, okay, that's cool. How long you've worked there?"
Yeah.
They're just going to strike up a conversation with you.
Cool. Yeah. So I saw you speak at the Social Business Forum. It was probably 2 years ago now. I don't even know when it was, but you used a similar example. The alcohol and spirits company that you worked for. And you talked about how you sort of deviated away from the main platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and you actually found a lot of very passionate people in forums out there.
Absolutely.
So would you recommend that businesses kind of try to find these like micro niche communities, and they may be less sexy, but there's a lot of value there, right?
Yeah, there is, and the example that I like to use, obviously when I worked in the alcohol, wine, and spirits industry, I worked very specifically around bourbon. For the most part, and there are several different sort of subsets of audiences in the bourbon category. One of which is what I like to call the nutters, and these are people who they're just passionate about bourbon. It's not that they're passionate about one brand or another. It's just they love bourbon. They love tasting it. They treat it much like a wine drinker would drink wine. They smell it. They swash it around in their mouth. They chew it to get the flavor. They can pull flavor, in their palate. Their palates are very sophisticated and whatnot. And it's much more about enjoying the taste as it is, getting hammered.
Right.
And so they're nutters, but they're like nutters in a different, category. But there's a forum, an old school social media forum message board community called straightbourbon.com. And it's, probably 300 or 400 people are in this thing, but there are 300 or 400 people who just love bourbon and they know a lot about it, and they'll call BS on you quicker than anybody because they know it. They know the industry. They know the players. Some of the master distillers are probably even in the forum. So you've got a really sophisticated audience. There was no way I was going to walk into a straightbourbon.com and start pitching stuff. No way. They would have run me out of there in a heartbeat. So when I signed up for the forum, I reached out to the administrator right off the top of the very first thing, emailed him and said, here's who I am. Here's my, professional agenda, if you will. But here's what I'm going to try to do in straightbourbon.com. I'm going to learn. I'm going to offer my perspective and my opinions on tastes. I'm not going to market. I'm not going to try to promote anything. And I just want to build a relationship with the people here and learn more about bourbon, because I was going to learn a ton more from them than they would ever get at me. And it worked out really well. I wasn't real active in the community. I really just read to learn. But every now and then I would chime in, and my signature line said, social media guy for this bourbon company,
Right.
and nobody thought I was obtrusive. In fact, about 9 or 10 months into the relationship, we had a new product launch coming, and I sent an email to the administrator and said, "Hey, this is coming up. I would like for the people in straightbourbon.com to know about it, but it's inappropriate for me to communicate that."
Right.
And he copied and pasted it and posted it for me. So it came from the administrator, not from me. It was awesome.
Nice, nice. So yeah, that's like a great example of finding, and that sounds like a lot of really great market research as well, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the intelligence that just me personally understanding more about bourbon and the industry and the different brands and whatnot, I learned more from just camping out on that forum and message board for an hour a week or whatnot than I probably did working with anybody at the brands that I work with, because I was getting a real unbiased third-party consumer perspective. I mean, these people were like, well, Blanton's is this and Knob Creek is that, and they were able to throw out cues and traits of all these bourbons that I mean, I would have had to have gotten cirrhosis to figure all this out.
Right.
And fortunately didn't have to.
Nice, nice. All right, so switching gears a little bit. So Social Media Explorer, the blog that you run, recently or semi-recently has upped the amount of authors that you have on the site. You're up to, you onboarded up to like 12 authors recently. Mm-hmm. And so, what advice would you give to other bloggers out there, other companies out there to, attract and retain those guest posters?
I mean, obviously the easy answer to attract and retain is to pay them. But I don't pay the people who write for me. What I did is I basically Social Media Explorer up until last September 2010 was an individual blog. For a time there, while I was working with Doe Anderson, which is a former agency I used to work with, I had two social media managers, staff members who worked for me, who also blogged there as well, Kat French and David Finch. But with that exception, it's always just been my blog. It's a personal blog. It's a thought leadership platform, whatever it is. And so I decided that because I had, over the course of several years, built up a nice audience, lots of page views and unique visits and so on and so forth, I thought, I have an opportunity to do two things here. Number one, I have an opportunity to monetize my blog in a way that it hadn't been monetized before. And because I'm an independent consultant now and I'm not working for a specific company, although certainly I have clients and whatnot, it was an opportunity to look at it as a revenue stream, which I'd never done before, and legitimately drive some revenue from it. Certainly not enough to pay my mortgage, but a little bit of beer money or whatever.
Right.
But I also then saw an opportunity to say, you know what? If I want to monetize it, I'm going to have to increase page views a little bit more because advertisers want eyeballs. And in order to do that, I can't scale my own content any more than it already is with all my workload. So I'm going to have to bring on other people. So what I did is I said, okay, editorially, I want to go this direction. I want to be still be a thought leadership blog, but I want to push the thinking. I want to question the status quo. I don't want to be a 101 level blog. I want to make people think. Right. And so I went out and tried to find authors who did that. But I went out and tried to find authors who did that but didn't have their own platform or didn't have a big enough platform to really share their ideas and to give them some added exposure to help them build a bigger audience. Really smart people who I respected in the industry, but whether it was where they worked or whether it was they just didn't have enough time to build their own blog in their spare time and whatnot, I wanted to give them a platform and share that audience. And I was really careful about who I picked. And we've had a couple of people turn over since I did that in September. We've had two authors who have rotated off, and I've brought two others on. And I'm real careful in screening who I bring on. And I try to pick people for specific reasons. I like to have a couple people who write about analytics and a couple people who write about branding and a couple people who write about PR and so on and so forth. But I've just tried to make it clear to them that, I don't have any financial rewards for you. If I ever get to the point to where the blog's making a lot of money, I absolutely will pay my authors, and I hope to get to that point someday. But it's really just about sharing that platform and letting their voices be heard and helping me push the intellectual the line a little further than it's being pushed elsewhere.
Right, right. So you're making it a win-win situation. So they're getting exposure, you're getting content, good content, and it's a win-win. So I think it'll work. Moving into the future. So
I sure hope so. I mean, it's working so far, and nobody seems to be complaining about it, and it's obviously opt-in. They don't have to do it. So
yeah, that's true.
It's kind of funny. I've had a couple of them who've come, and this is a good thing for people running blogs. It's good for you to know. I've had a couple of my authors who have either missed it. We've got an editorial calendar and deadlines and all that kind of stuff. I've had a couple people who've missed deadlines for personal family reasons or whatever. They get busy. We all have jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And they always are like, "Oh, Jason, I'm so sorry, and I don't mean to do this," and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, and I've told them this, and I'll say this forever, while there's great benefit to me having and owning Social Media Explorer, I get traffic, I get potential clients, I get potential speaking gigs and so on and so forth. People come there and then trust me enough to go to Exploring Social Media and subscribe to my learning community. It is absolutely a funnel for my business. But at the end of the day, it's a blog, and it's just a blog.
Right.
I try to let my authors know, don't let your deadlines or priorities or anything get in the way of your families, your jobs, your own businesses. This is just a blog, kids. And you know what? If we skip a post tomorrow, the world does not end. I promise. The rapture does not come because someone forgot to put Thursday's post up on SME.
Right, right. Cool. So do you have like a backup post in the hopper in case, you do get a last minute cancellation? I've heard, some bloggers kind of doing that.
I don't have an inventory of posts built up, but I'm a little different breed of cat, though. I edit my stuff on Sunday nights for the week so that I don't have to fool with the blog during the week other than responding to comments. And if someone doesn't have their post in by deadline, I just write an extra blog post. I spend extra time writing on Sunday night. I spent 12 years in college athletics as a PR guy, and the ball game would end at 10:50, and I had to have a 400-word press release to the paper by 11 o'clock. So I write fast and efficiently, and so I'm able to pound out ideas quicker than most people. So I normally compensate for the lapse there is.
So what resources would you recommend for someone looking to dive a lot deeper into social media? What do you keep tabs on out there?
There's a lot of great blogs. There's a lot of great resources out there. I think one thing that I've been challenging myself with a lot lately is getting away from blog reading as my primary source of information and diving into more books and more magazines and more traditional media that are covering the space because they're starting to do a better job of it. And I appreciate good, solid journalism and reporting as much as the next guy. Not that blogging does not present that, but I just find some really good information coming from different sources to be, it rounds out my thinking a lot better. But there are some really good blogs out there. Obviously, if you're starting out on the sort of 101 level and you don't have a good background in social media, I think Social Media Examiner is a fantastic starting point. Mike Stelzner does a great job there of churning out really good
on the show, future episodes.
Absolutely, he does a great job. I love what HubSpot does. It's more holistic and well-rounded with digital marketing in mind, not just social media, but you can get a lot of great content there. I love what John Jantz does at Duct Tape Marketing for small businesses specifically. Obviously, the big one's Mashable. If you're looking into the technology world, you've got TechCrunch and ReadWriteWeb that keep up with all the tools and whatnot.
Right.
But I really like to look toward some thought leaders out there that I think give really good content that help you think about digital marketing and social media and how it integrates. And I like people who have marketing backgrounds more so than just bloggers who know a little bit about marketing.
Right.
So you're gonna see some commonalities in the people that I read. I love David Armano. I love Jeff Livingston, who actually does a lot of cause marketing and nonprofit type these days. Golly, I could go on and on. Liz Strauss has a great, blogging for business. Chris Brogan's, phenomenal. Chris is sort of, migrated toward more of inspirational, big level thinking these days than practical tips, but he mixes in the practical too. David Meerman Scott is fantastic. I could go on and on.
That's great. That's plenty. That's plenty. So you mentioned you're more into books now, and word on the street is that you yourself are working on a book. So can you talk about anything there?
Well, I'll say this: if I am working on a book, it would allegedly be coming out in the fall, and it would allegedly be a no nonsense look at how to use social media for business, and it's going to raise a couple of eyebrows just because of the title alone. If I were writing a book.
Title is "Social Media is Dead." No, but that'd
Not
be good. So, Jason, where can people find you online?
Okay, on Twitter, I'm Jason Falls. In fact, I'm Jason Falls just about everywhere because that's my name. Socialmediaexplorer.com is the blog. It's more of a thought leader blog. I'm not the only person who writes there, but we would love to have you there. ExploringSocialMedia.com is our learning community. And that's also where you can find out more about our traveling events and things of that nature. And that's pretty much where you can find me online. I'm pretty easy to find.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show, and I'm looking forward to that book. Let me know when it's out. I want to get you back on to talk about it.
Well, hypothetically, I'm excited about publishing that and getting it out there for everyone, Dave. So
hypothetically, I'll get you back on the show. Yeah,
it's going to be a hypothetically great book.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, man.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks for having me.